Okay, so good evening. I'm Natalie and I'm going to be demonstrating some pretty gritty goodies today. So I'm going to be working on an MDF plaque, but if you want to use a canvas board for this particular project you can do. And I'm going to be focusing on the Pretty Positive stamp set. So this is going to be Fridays, as in the 25th of June, this in? Yep. So this is going to be Fiver Friday. So over on prettygetsgritty.co.uk. So without too much further ado, let's show you what I've prepped so far. So sitting ever so nicely in my stamp platform is my MDF plaque. Now I've primed it with 4 coats of gesso, and they're thin layers so that we can get them as smooth as possible. So when we're stamping, we want to try and make sure that we have a nice smooth surface to stamp onto. If you want to get it ultra smooth, you can go over with a bit of fine sandpaper just to take any brush strokes off, but I've left mine pretty much as it is.
Shaz and Jane, say hi.
Hello! So on top of that, I've done a little bit of stenciling with some gel medium so that we have a bit of resist that's going to come through our layers. And I've done an initial sketch of a face, so I've used just a magazine clipping as a kind of basis to go to, and then sketch that onto my board. So onwards to the stamping. So we want to be doing our stamping before we try and put any other mediums onto our MDF so that we have a flat surface. So I have this corner that I can work with and this corner I can work with. So when I've done my stenciling, I've kind of planned that around that. So to start with,
Deb says hi to you.
hi Deb. Oh. I'm going to go for a background stamp. So I'm going to place that onto my MDF plaque. It doesn't matter if it goes off the edge. And I'm going to pop down my stamp platform. Now you're going to notice I've got my stamp platform on the rubber side rather than the clear side. So this gives us a little bit extra clearance, but it's still going to be quite resistant to actually stamping. So just be patient with it. And don't worry if it sticks. Now because I'm doing a background, I'm going to go in with a paler ink pad. So I'm going to be using Sandy Toes, which I think sounds fab for this time of year. And I'm just going to ink my stamp up. Now this is a hybrid ink pad, and it's pretty resistant to alcohol or water-based inks, which is one of the reasons why I like it. Now I'm not going to put all my weight on the stamp because obviously we've got that little bit of a lip, but if there's anywhere particular I want it to grab, I'm just going to go in with just a fingertip. Okay, I want a bit more in that one place. Let's see if I can just get it there. May just be I need a little bit more ink. That's not looking too bad. I don't want it to be a perfect impression, so that's something to bear in mind, especially when you're working in the top section of your canvas. Because of that lip, you kind of struggle to get a perfect impression, so don't worry about putting text too close to the top, and that'll do. Okay, let's pull that one off.
Say hello to Stacey, Lynette.
Hi Stacey, hi Lynette.
And your mum's watching too.
Hi Mum. So next I'm going to go for my sentiment. Now there's a few that we can choose from, but I'm going to go big and bold and go with our Be-You-Tiful. I'm going to go just there. Okay. Now for this one I'm going to go to the black because I want to keep it a nice clear outline. And this one's quite a funky outline anyway, so don't worry too much if you don't get it spot on. I'm just going to do a little bit more inking just on that TI. There we go. So these inks will just clean up with a spot of water on a cloth. As I've stamped in black, I'm just going to try and take most of that excess off before putting it off so my fingers don't get too mucky. Okay, so next I'm going to grab one of our flower images and I'm actually going to pop that where her eye should be. And just in case I decide I don't like it, I'm going to do it in the lighter colour. This means that we're giving ourselves the opportunity to correct our mistakes if we decide that actually no, that doesn't work. We can just go over the top with something else. Okay, so there's our flower image. I'm going to use a couple of the other flower images in our background. Now as we start to kind of build up in our background now, you're going to start to hit these areas which are slightly raised. It doesn't matter, it just means that you might lose a little bit of your imagery. So I'm going to go and pop this one somewhere over here to start with. And I'm going to go for the purple, which is Sea Anemone. Now at this point just be really careful because where that overlaps your gel medium, it's going to be resisting that ink. So try not to smudge it. So now I'm going to move that and let's go to just there. Again. And stamp and get second generation like so. Now let's go for a different stamp. So you've got lots of flowers in this one, so I don't think that you have to stay with the same one. And I'm going to go for this one just here. Maybe one more just down here. So I do want to build up this corner a little bit more when we get to the next few layers. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with where that stamping is. So on your set you've got a couple of other sentiments that you could use instead of your Be-You-Tiful. So we've got the most important thing a girl wears is her confidence, or you have your positive mind, positive vibes, positive life. So you could still put those up in this top edge. Just when you're stamping it, just remember to just move your MDF piece down your platform so you're not encountering that issue up top. Any questions?
Not yet.
Okay.
I have 2 Facebook chats open and YouTube to watch.
Okay. So before I go too much further, I'm going to grab a pen and I'm going to start to fill in a bit of the detail from our face. So let's move this out of the way. So hopefully you can see that all right. Maybe that the face is a little pale, but that's going to be corrected shortly. Okay. Okay. So I have so by doing the outline now, it means that when we get to do our painting, if you want to correct things, you can do. And you can always go back with your outliner pen after we've finished. So just kind of doing the main points. So I'm not going to outline absolutely everything. Now when it gets to around here, just be aware that you do have some bits that are going to be still wet. So I have it's one of those ones, if you're good with your eyeliner brush, you'll be spot on with this one. Okay. I'm just going to do parts of the eye so that we actually start to build in a bit of shading right from the get-go. And I'm also going to do a little bit just here, as we have that flower kind of covering the rest of that. Just there, you want to be able to kind of see roughly where that line's going to come. Then we have our hairline, so I'm going to just start to just lightly brush that in, and again, don't get too hung up on it, because we can always go back and reshape this after we've done our painting.
Stacey's asked, what ink did you use for sorry. What ink did you use for your stamp, and what are you going to use to colour with as they get mixed with them?
Okay, so the ink I used to stamp is squid ink, and I use 3 colours. So Sea Anemone is the purple. We have Sandy Toes, which is the soft beige colour, and we have Cave Black, which is what we stamp for the Be-You-Tiful. The pen is a licensed to quill pen, which I love the name of. Can't think why. Okay.
Maybe just put some white gesso on the back.
Yeah, it's just white gesso on the background with a little bit of gel medium stenciling for a resist, but you can't really see that until we start to apply a few different inks. So I'm being really light-handed at the moment, so if you're thinking, oh, that line looks a bit wobbly, that's why. Okay, so we're getting there. Just going to put in a little bit of detail for this jawline. And it's made there just to help me do the next stage, which is our painting.
Would they work with watercolour pens or alcohol pens to colour it in so it doesn't bleed out?
Yes, the squid inks work with both water and alcohol based colouring. So that's one of the reasons why I tend to use it as my go-to, because I have a very organic process, so it's a case of I'll stamp it and then I'll think about what I'm colouring it with. So it's kind of a good catch-all, that one. Okay, so let's get on with a bit of painting. Let's go.
So the drawing is lovely, so gentle with the pen.
Yeah, at this point you kind of want to go gentle, because if you get your acrylic inks or paints on it, it's going to kind of be knocked back anyway. So chances are you're probably going to end up going back in and doing a little bit of extra work to it. So one thing I do want to do before I start painting is I'm going to get a clean section of my bamboo cloth. I'm just going to gently block my stamped images, and you'll see there's a little bit of transference but not too much, just where it's overlapped the two, and because we let it have that little time to sit, it should start to stick to our gel medium a bit more than it would do if you try and wipe it straight away. So I'm going to start off with some chalk paint, and this one is called Naked, and I'm also going to have Tickled. It wasn't in an instruction here. Okay, so I'm going to go for a slightly smaller brush. Feels a bit, there we go. So while big brushes are good for tackling large areas, it can feel a bit awkward for blending. So I'm going to come in, and to start with I'm just going to go in neat with our Naked. Now when you first put this on, you might be thinking, oh my, that's awfully dark, but you'll see it starts to soften as it blends out. Now as we get to our flower, I'm just going to try and go round my ink as much as possible. And I'm going to concentrate on getting a good base on my face first. And we may not get this all done tonight, but we'll see how it goes.
You've got to 8 o'clock till the football starts.
Is that when you go, that's it, I'm signing off for the night? Okay. So far, we've pretty much done that neat. Now, I'm going to go into my Tickled, and I'm just going to come back over the eyelid and start to blend that in a little bit. And I'm literally blending that on the MDF, so I'm not mixing it in a palette first, just go straight for it. I'm going to put a little bit across here too. What's the giggle?
That's right. Stacey said, how do you know what size of brush to use? I use the same one for everything long.
It tends to be more the shape of brush rather than the size of brush that's kind of more important. So if I'm doing something that is a large flat blend, I'll go for a flat brush. If it's going to be something more detailed, I prefer to go for a round. So I'm just going into the tickled and blending that down. And you can see there where I've gone over the line. That's okay, just swipe a finger over the top. As I said, chances are you're going to end up going back over this line work anyway.
Yes, Natalie has a hoard of brushes. It's fortunate you can't see them. A collection of them that put no shops to shame.
Yeah, I do have a bit of a thing for paintbrushes. I like painting. Something I don't get enough time to do, isn't it? So. Okay, so that was going back with the naked, by the way. So again, just going to blend that in nice and gently. And if you find it's pulling on the gesso, don't worry, because you're probably going to want to come back in and do makeup and bits on top of this anyway. So think of this as the face with the foundation before you put all the pretty layers on top. Okay, so I'm going back to the tickled so that we get more of those pinky tones in the cheeks. And back to our naked to go around the sides. A bit more of the tickled to go across the top of the chin. Again, bringing in those pinky tones. Make a blush. And back to our naked now. This time we're going to be cutting in under the lips. Okay. Now I can use the flat of the brush to just blend that back in. So now you can see we're starting to come across a little bit of our texture from our stencil. That's fine. Don't panic.
May says she'll catch up later and it's looking beautiful so far.
Thank you. Let's cut in with our naked again, down the side of the nose, round the flower. Yeah. I'm nearly there. I'm just going to come around this side because that's where the outside of her cheek is. And even though we've got this hair kind of coming down here, just continue your skin tone just up past your hairline, just in case you end up missing a few bits. And then it will look like you've just got strands overlapping rather than you've missed a section. So while I'm here, I'm also going to do a little bit round the neck as well. And I have actually put the shoulders in too. So we can go over here. Now you're going to definitely see now that we're starting to go over our stenciling. And as we start to work further away, you don't necessarily have to have perfect coverage, so you can start to blend it out ready for whatever you do in the background. So I'm just going to bring that round the letters. A little bit more just round here. Down between the I and the F. Am I still screening in? Or am I slowly wandering off?
No.
Okay.
I have the full MDF board on screen.
Cool. Okay.
I have told you she knew.
Okay. So with that done like that, I'm just going to quickly give my brush a little bit of a wash. So with my paintbrush still damp, I'm just going to blend a little bit of this edge. Now if you find it's sticking a bit too much, don't panic. You can always mix a little with that chalk paint with some white gesso and tint it that way instead. Especially when it's hot like this, it can be quite quick drying. So here where it's got a bit of a tide mark, I might end up just putting a little bit of gesso over that just to help it blend. We'll see how it goes by the end of it. Okay, so not looking too bad for our first coat, and hopefully our face is almost dry so that we can actually start to put in a bit more over the top. So I'm going with the tickle this time, just to put in a bit more of a pink tone on her forehead, and also back down her nose. Now back to me naked. I'm just going to go straight over this bit here. So that's so that we start to actually lose the outline as such of our nose and actually start relying on our actual shading to have that form. So I'm going to take that round just underneath the brow so that we get that kind of sense that it's receding. Going to do the same for this side. So brush it round. If you need to blend a little bit with your finger, you can do. But I'm also going to put a little bit up that edge. So you can see now that we're going to start losing some of our lines a little. But that's okay, don't worry about doing that at this stage. We can always go back in with our pen towards the end.
Carol says she had a very pink or rather red tone last Saturday after a 14-mile walk. Oh dear.
I think pink would be an understatement if I went and did that at the moment. That's definitely not going to be on my to-do list, is it, Ian, for a bit yet? I'm getting better, but nowhere near that ready yet. It's very annoying though, because I'm quite a bit behind on stuff now. Okay, So I'm going to take a little bit of our naked. So I've got just a tiny bit on our brush. And I'm just going to take this up and round here so that we get like a little bit of a triangle just there. And it's just going to help make that eye pop a little bit better. There we go. So I'm just going to blend that with my finger. As I said, I don't mind getting my fingers in there and get mucky. So again, don't mind going over that line, because we can always come back and redo that. And do the same here. So I'm going to go underneath. And it's this shadow underneath that's going to make your lips actually look like they're coming forward rather than just sitting on a flat surface. So it's worth spending a bit of time just getting that right. And same with the jawline round here, just put a bit of that naked round there so that we get a softening of that jawline as it goes round and underneath. Otherwise it can look a bit flat like Max Headroom. And we don't want that. Unless that's the look you're going for.
Carol says she's going for an evening walk next Wednesday.
Cute. Cute, cute.
Followed by an Indian at our favourite restaurant. So we just look for England to have to play next Wednesday night. Don't know when the next round is. When
No, I don't.
I haven't looked that far ahead.
Okay, so I'm just doing a quite heavy second coat just underneath the chin, because that's really where you're going to find most of your darks. So, not doing too bad. How are we doing for time, Ian?
Half an hour.
Half an hour. Oof. Right.
You've done.
Okay. I'm going to go for, just thinking about that cheek, it still looks a bit blotchy, so let's put some pink over that. So the pink is a bit more translucent than the naked, so if you just want to gently knock something back, the pink is quite good for that. So that's tickled. And then when it's still wet, I'm just going to go in with the naked and just blend that back over the top so that we don't lose our shading too much. There we go.
Looks like she's just started to put cucumber on her eyes for an eye mask. You just interrupted her halfway through.
Yeah, at the moment it looks like she's kind of got her hair in a towel too. A bit pink. Yeah. So, what I might do actually, just oh God, go on. Can't get it open. Well, it won't be so bad, but it's not long closed. I'm just going to put the lids back on those for a bit. So I'm going to put a lip just there, a little bit on her nose. Right there, a little bit just there, so that we get kind of a little bit just on her cheek, but I'm going to really blend this out so it's a little bit just there. She needed highlighter. Okay, and while I've got that on my brush, I can just go back in here and just tone these bits back a bit. Okay. So while those bits are drying, I'm going to get a little round brush, and we've got the detail in our flowers to do. And what I am going to do is I'm going to pinch a little bit of palette space. So I'm using some explosion powders. This one is Mars. Okay. Soggy.
You get soggy with this, you keep doing that with that in your hand.
Right. Let's get a little bit of water on the brush, and I'm just going to mix that up a little. Now hopefully our ink has had plenty of time to dry, so we should still be able to just see it through our watercolour. So the more this kind of fades out, the more you're going to see the outline appearing from beneath it. Make sure you take it right up to those edges so it doesn't look like you've got a weird kind of halo. Like so. Okay, so that's kind of our first tint, and that's going to show us where to go. So I'm going to make a slightly darker mix. So as my brush starts to dry out a little, our colour's going to get darker and darker. And you just want to try and make sure that you keep it so that your powders are actually liquid on your brush rather than any little clumps of...
Carol asked more for damp squids and explosion. Why are they explosion powders?
Okay, they're explosion powders because while we're using them like this, you really can't see what they really do. And what I will do in a minute is I will show you. Because this way, we're kind of watercolouring with them and it's all very controlled and all very pretty. And then we can go a little bit mad with them too. So if you like your pigment powders, you're going to love these. So I'm just going to mix a little bit more in. So what you will see in a minute when I lift this up is just how much these actually really sparkle. Even when we're using them just like a watercolour like we are here. So you can see it's got a real metallic sheen to it. Just going to get a little bit more water on my brush. Just starting to get a little bit too dry. I just want to go around this edge here. Okay. Now I'm going to get a clean flat brush. So this is one of those occasions where I'm going to swap again. And let's go for that one. And I'm just going to get some clean water. And I'm going to go where paint isn't. So around for our background. So now you can see that that squid ink really doesn't mind the water. If you see a little bit of a yellow tinge, that's just where it's picking up my outlining from where I had to sketch my face in. Okay, so I'm going to go down this panel first of all, and now this is where I'm going to grab my messy mat, because I don't want this to go too much onto the face, and I'm going to grab my water bottle. Now if I'm really lucky, you'll start to see all the different colours that come out of these. So you can see that we've got bits of blue that will come out, you've got your metallic shimmer, and you can actually then start to work back into that if you want to, or if you want to drop some more powder on so you get a more intense colour, you can do. So just going to gently tap again. If you start to find that you're getting a little tide mark, just grab your round brush and we can actually just start to encourage that colour back up to our face like so. So you can see where you've got your powdery chunks, it's going to be really intense. Where it's more water, you're going to get the softer pigment blending.
Stacey says the face is fabulous, coming on really well. I hope you can get to finish it on the live. I don't want this to end. Loving it. I'm learning so much.
I will go for as long as I'm able to.
As long as your back allows. So.
Yeah, as long as the pain allows, I will keep going. So at the moment our board is really wet. Really wet. So if you've got any clumps, just pounce your brush into them and they kind of pop. So then you can start to pull that colour into places that might be a bit paler. And you can see where we've got our stenciling, it's going to start actually pooling around that. Now as we start to come down to the shoulders here, you can actually start to drag that colour through. So whereas here we're keeping a hard line, we can actually start to be a bit softer.
Don't worry, Carol, I'll make sure she's finished by 8.
Yeah, otherwise I'll be in trouble with the boss. He'll tell me off. Okay. So now that I'm starting to come around here, I'm thinking it would actually be fun if we actually included the other one as well. But I don't know. Should I be brave and go for the Artemis, do you think, Ian?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
She's undone.
Let's get the light brush. I don't want the acrylic brush, I want the... I do Let's get a bit more water on there first. So water is your friend when it comes to the explosion powders, but if you want to pre-wet or sprinkle them wet, it's up to you. Now, with this, it's not going to be so easy to cut in around your letters, so kind of concentrate your colour up here and you can blend it back down.
Karen wants to know if you're watching the footy too.
I do occasionally, don't I?
Yeah. It's England tonight, so you'll be watching tonight, aren't you?
Yeah. Gotta have something to chat with my dad about. Okay, so if it goes on the face like this, don't worry too much. Just when you're applying your water, in terms of the spray bottle, just try and mask it, and then you can always go back. And you can see there where I said about, it's going to be more difficult to try and cut round lettering, so don't worry about it.
Is that you'd like some more in there, or is that alright?
No, that's fine. Fine. So, now let's get a round brush, I think. Now, very carefully, I'm just going to sweep that off. So, the other bits and pieces over here, if it hasn't got wet, then you can brush it off towards the end. Anything that has got wet, you're going to be able to actually work with a little bit more. Let's get some water down there. There we go. So we're going to start to see that our stenciling is going to start to appear, so you can see the little bit up here. So I'm just going to bring a bit more of that water up this way so it can actually pull out our stenciling like this. And if need be, we'll apply a few more powders up into this top corner. So let's just bring that water around there. So as we do this bit, we can be a bit more picky about where it's going. So I'm just going to make sure that I get the centre of the letters as well, otherwise they can look a bit weird. And I'm going to make sure that up here it starts to actually mingle the two colours together as well, so we're not ending up with that colour and that colour. So again, just add a little bit more. So I don't want to add too much. So let's see if we can just get that to move. Break it up a little bit. There we go. Same here. And you can see here how differently it reacts with our stenciling.
They're two different colours, aren't they?
They are two different colours. So we have, the first colour I used was Mars, which has like the rose goldy tones to it. And this colour is Artemis, which looks gold in the bottle, but it actually comes out this really vibrant purple. And I'm just going to break that up in here and bring that up to the hairline, just so she doesn't get a weird halo around there. And I'm even going to bring a little bit of that colour back over here as well. Okay. Now I'm going to let that sit and actually dry as I carry on with the rest of it. So let's give my brush a quick wash. I'm just going to get a kind of wet brush, and I'm going to push that colour back to that jawline. So again, this is going to help create shading.
very similar in the bottles, don't they?
Yeah, yeah, it really doesn't look like what you think it would look like. So with the colour that's up here, I'm going to be pushing this back towards her nose, so that we start to kind of increase that shadow just there. And don't get too upset if you've got a little few random specks, because skin is not perfectly flawless. Now with these bits up here, we've got a bit that is just sitting there. We can actually start to bring that into her hair a little. So this means that when we start to take our haircut over the top, we're still going to get a little bit of that sparkle coming through. And again, just make sure that there's plenty of water. And if that starts to pull it in from the background, that's fine too. As long as you can still see that outline where you want your hair to go. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit more of that original explosion powder, so this is Mars that I have in my palette, and I'm going to go and drop this in here where it's the darkest kind of section. And again, just blend it with a finger. A little bit under the nose, so that we start to make that nose pop out. And we can even pop just a little bit just in the corner of the eye, so that we start to give a little bit of that shading in there too. I'm just going to go around here as well. So hopefully our hair starts to look like it's already there in some shape or form, because the shading should already be there. A bit more water on our brush if it's starting to dry out a little. I'm just going to go around this side too. Okay. And I'm even going to pop a little bit just under her chin for the little dark section there. I'm going to pick up a bit more of that colour and just pop it in there, because we're getting a bit of a weird kind of halo going on around her shoulders. Okay. Looking good. Quite like that.
Just going up to 55 minutes.
Okay. Let me just at least get her eyes and mouth done.
Yeah, right.
So what I will do,
You don't need that.
I'm just thinking, because we're about halfway through what I wanted to do. So I'm thinking next week, maybe, Ian?
Yeah.
Just to finish her
No,
off.
check with Tom.
Yeah, I'll check with Tom.
Confirm schedule.
Yeah. Because it'd be a shame to not see her finish, wouldn't it? So I'm just going to come in on her lips. Start off pale. Pick up a bit more colour. So again, we're going to be going darker. and we're going to come and do the top lip first. Then we're going to blend in from the outer corners like so. So that we kind of have a centre highlight, darker again. So again, top lip, but this time just leave a little bit that's slightly lighter.
Sarah, this is amazing.
And there we go.
Evening, Sarah. Snuck in there.
So with that, I think I'm going to call it a day until next week or whenever Tom schedules me for.
Might have a different set of stamps you can use it. So much to detail.
Yeah, might have. Or it might be something totally different. So I'll just mix a little bit where I've got both colours, and just so that I can put in a darker area at the bottom. And I don't think that's too bad. Let's just put in a little there and a bit just there. And I will promise I will stop fiddling with that, honest.
You're going to let it dry.
Yes, yeah, because her background is very, very wet now. So, what I would say is make sure that you let all that background air dry rather than trying to use a heat gun or anything like that, and you'll find that those colours actually do have a lovely varied finish throughout. So, hopefully see you next week. Bye for now.